But I'm supplementing the teaching time about I am a church member that we're doing through Sunday school with the sermon series called Refrigerator Friends of Faith. That everybody has some people that, or should have some people that they are so close to that they could come over to your house and without even asking permission, they could go to the refrigerator and they could make themselves a sandwich and just feel right at home. And those people you are comfortable with and they are around you. Now, I would have to warn you, if you come to my house and want to use a refrigerator, you may want to bring food with you to put in the refrigerator first, because not all the time are the pickings real abundant there too. But either way, we need that kind of close-knit group that can comfort us, encourage us, even correct us from time to time. People who will tell us, hey, you need to tone that down a little bit. You need to go this direction in your life. When Jesus came to change the world, he did not erect a huge cathedral. He did not have mass evangelisms. He did not even produce great concerts. He chose to take 12 men and disciple them. And for 3 years, he did life with them. As they walked along the seashore, they would talk about things. As they journeyed from village to village doing ministry, they would interact and learn. And Jesus then took those 12 men, and one betrayed him. And he took those 12 men, though, and he set them loose to then make more disciples. This is what we are about. Our church ministry, our purpose is that we are here to make disciples. Now, if we're not making disciples, we're not doing what Jesus commanded us to do. And so we're in the task of building friendships that will help each other be more and more like the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, in these refrigerator friends of faith, you need them because if you show me your friends, I can show you your future. That's been kind of a reoccurring quote I've said every Sunday for the past several weeks, that your friends shape who you are. They have a strong, powerful, determining factor. In fact, you will never be everything that God wants you to be unless the right people are around you. Surrounding yourself with godly people that will lift you up and challenge you to go forward is so essential to a Christian's faith. That doesn't mean that you isolate from the lost world. We are to be in the world ministering. But we need that small core group. Now, in our church, we call it our Sunday school classes. Some churches have what's called home groups. They are powerful, close-knit groups that change and develop one another. And sometimes the group may not be Bible study based. Some people's small group, encouraging group, challenging group, it may be a handbell ministry. It may be a team that you do week-to-week ministry to a homeless shelter. It may be something that you feel close to, and there are people who know you by name, and they pray for you, they challenge you and encourage you. But everyone needs that small group to encourage and to strengthen them. Now, this week's lesson is about, I will lead my family to be healthy church members. I've added another line to it. I will lead my family and friends to be healthy church members. Because here's what I've discovered. We have a significant number of people in our church who do not have any immediate family living near them, or even some alive. I had my secretary do a search of our membership and to identify the number of widows that we have. 102 widows. And I'm going through that to determine how many of them have no immediate family there to support them or to help them. Many of them have sons or daughters nearby that can help them, but there are some who are all alone. We have one in a retirement center, and she's unable to write her own checks. And so there's a need there for someone to simply pay the bills, and she's unable to manage her checking account. And while she has funds coming in, she can't keep track of all that. And yet there's no son, no daughter. Her husband died a year ago. Her son died a few years ago. And so we're discovering that in a church like ours, and like other churches, there are people who do not have immediate friends or immediate family that they can be an influence on. So I've labeled this, I will lead my family and my friends to be healthy church members. Now, to do so, the focus is on family. And I'll have to admit, I want to give you 4 words that I think are crucial if you're going to be an impact and influence on those who are closest to you. The 4 words are becoming, being, praying, and serving. And I'll expand on these just a little bit more too. First of all, if you're going to be lead people to be healthy church members, the first word, you must become like Jesus. Second, you must be in a church. Third, you need to pray at home. And fourth, you need to serve in the world. Let's talk about becoming like Jesus. The most important one is this, that you need to become more and more like Jesus Christ. If you want to influence your children, your spouse, your relatives, your friends, first and foremost, it's not the church. It is you and your own character. Hey, I have yet to understand this. You can have a couple of parents that are godly parents. They love the Lord with all their heart. God's working in their life. You can see their maturity and their depth, and there's no question about their loyalty. And they can raise a couple of children and bring them to church, involve them in church, set the right example for them, and those children can turn out to be hellions. You have no clue whatsoever why. They rebel against everything. They don't go the way of the Lord. And yet you've got perfectly godly parents who've done, sort of by the book, everything right. On the other extreme, you can have 2 parents who may or may not care for the Lord, and suddenly their own child is on fire for God. God does a work in their heart, and that child has gone miles beyond where their parents are. And I wish I could give you a formula that if you do this, 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 and this, it guarantees those children will turn out well. And if you avoid these things, these children will be great. But there is none. It perplexes me. But I have discovered that those people whose children and family does tend to lean toward a dedication and honoring of God, there are some characteristics. And the number one characteristic is the parents are becoming more like Jesus Christ. I've got this cold, and so if my voice is a little grating and aggravating to you, I apologize for that. But the number one characteristic is that the parents, the leaders in that home, their walk with Christ is a genuine walk. It's not something you do between 10:30 and 11:30 on Sunday and then forget about it. Your walk with Christ is God is shaping your life and molding you, and you're on a journey where you're becoming more and more like the Lord Jesus Christ. The next thing. It's most likely their children will and others will become healthy church members if you are becoming more like the Lord Jesus Christ. Second of all is this. Not only and we learned that from the person by the name of Barnabas. We've been studying about Barnabas in the New Testament, the book of Acts, how he was a person who was like Christ. Look at some of the things. Remember, his parents named him Joseph. Now, if you got the name Joseph, that's wonderful. Not a bad name, all right? And but he became known as encourager. That's what the name Barnabas means, because he was so much living like Christ. Here's some of the things that he did. I'll just kind of recap it. He sold some property and gave it to the apostles to help the poor. He stood up for Paul when Paul was being persecuted. Nobody wanted to be near him. He went to bat for Paul. He taught new believers. He heard about over in Antioch that saw a lot of new Christians a lot of people were being saved, and they were people who were not like him. These were non-Jewish people. And he says somebody needs to coach them, to train them. You know, I wish we could, a passion in my heart, I wish we could set up a mentoring process where when somebody joins our church, by the way, we've had about a dozen the past few weeks. I think I listed a lot of their names in the worship order. Where somebody, when they join our church, we partner them with a an existing church member, and say for the next 3-6 months, these people sort of mentor them. They pray for them. They write them an encouraging card. They call them. They take them to Wednesday night meal. I'll buy them the meal. You bring them to some sort of activity and just see for the first 6 months that they are settled in to our church. We don't do that very well. And God's blessing us with an abundance of people, and sometimes we just say, well, now that you're here, you're on your own. Some of them are highly self-motivated, but others will need a coach to guide them along. If God's put that on your heart, would you contact me this week? Maybe you could be a part of a program or structure that we mentor new people into our church. That's what Barnabas did. Barnabas was not content on just saying, I'm glad these people got saved. Good luck, guys. He said, let's teach them. And for a year and a half, he went there and taught in Antioch. Some of the other things he did, he went on the very first, what we call, church mission trip. He settled a church fight. Can you imagine them getting into a fight? But they did. He even gave, we'll talk about later, he gave his nephew, John Mark, a second chance after he quit. Barnabas demonstrated that Jesus was shaping his life. One of the greatest things you can do to help people become healthy church members is you become more and more like Jesus Christ. I cannot tell you how crucial that is, that your life is continuously being transformed to be like Christ. You know, we kind of reach a certain age and we learned all the religious jargon, the religious behavior, and we kind of stay within the boundaries, and we lose that passion that God's doing something in our life. You've done it. Maybe you've been in a church service like this one, or maybe another, and the song had a special meaning to you, and it just spoke to your heart, and you're all excited about it, and you're pumped up about it. Or maybe the preacher was preaching, and he read a scripture, and that scripture just kind of leaped off the page and spoke to your heart, and you're all excited about it, and you turned to your neighbor, and you said, "Did you read that? Did you hear what that said? Did you hear what they said? Look at that verse." And the person beside you went, "Yeah, I read it. Are those new shoes you have on?" No, you don't understand what God was saying in that verse, how it spoke to my heart. Yeah, that's pretty nice. How much did you pay for those new shoes? And this person, it just goes over their head. But to you, God spoke to your heart. Why? Because you're still on the journey of becoming more and more like the Lord Jesus Christ. You haven't become stagnated. You haven't become stale. You haven't become stuck. You are still seeking to be more and more like the Lord Jesus Christ. Hey, I've discovered this. The closer I get to Christ, and I'm a long way away, but the closer I get to Him, the more I realize how far away I really am. Because when I see Christ in more and more detail, I see how much further I have to go. Hey, I was given, I was about 8 years old, I was given one of these paint by numbers. And it was a big old, like 2 foot by 3 foot board. And it was a picture of a German shepherd. And I got those painted by numbers, you know, and I always detail. And I started out pretty good, then it got sloppy. And when I finished it, oh man, it was a disaster. This dog, you know, it had an ear way over here, one eye was about this big, you know. But I was proud of it, and I wanted to show it to my mother, so I got a great idea. I took that painting, and I didn't take it to her bedroom where she was. I went out in my backyard at the very end of the yard, and I put it on the fence. And I told her to look out the window from 40 yards away. Now listen, from 40 yards away, it looked like a Rembrandt. You know, it's a Picasso. It was beautiful. But as you got close, you saw, you know, his ears over here and his eyes too big and they don't match and it's ugly looking. You see, from further away, I look pretty good. But when I get close to Christ, wow, I got a long way to go. But what a journey it is. And the greatest way to influence folks is you let God work in your heart and life, keep changing you too. Hey, another thing that they did, and I'm going to move as quickly as I can, be involved with your church family. If you want to influence your children, your friends, your spouse, make sure you're faithful and involved in the church that you are encouraging them to be a part of. Don't just be a pew potato where you are spectators. The very first lesson in the book was about, I'll be a contributor, not a consumer. So you be involved in that. A second thing you can do is not only you pray and you talk with your family at home. Eddie mentioned about praying with his family he wished he had done more than. And that's my testimony. Sometimes I'd come in at night, and my kids were already asleep. And I wished I had prayed with them more. I wished I had knelt and prayed with them more. I wished I had taken them and put them in the bed and read a Bible story to them more frequently. But oftentimes I'd come in and they were already asleep. And I'd go in and I'd kneel by that bed and I'd just pray a blessing on them. Guys, you may feel awkward in doing that, but that's crucial that you pray with your family at home. And it may start out around the table. I want to encourage you to kneel in prayer at times. There is no prescribed posture for prayer. You read in the Bible that Abraham stood and prayed to the Lord. David sat before the Lord. We read about how Jesus would lie down. There are people who lifted their arms. There are people who knelt in prayer. There is no one single posture for praying. But I'll tell you one thing. When you kneel and pray, it has more than to do than the physical posture. Maybe some of you may have noticed, if it appears that I'm limping, it's because I am limping, all right? Okay. And this week I've got to have some knee surgery. Somewhere back there I messed up my knee, all right? And I would love to tell you that I did it because I prayed so long on my knees, I just wore them out. Well, I do pray on my knees at times, but it wasn't that abundant. It's probably grandkids. Now, if you read on the internet that I hurt my knee because I kicked one of our deacons, I hurt my left knee, you don't believe that. Because I would never, ever, ever kick one of our deacons with my left knee. I'm right-footed, and I can do so much more damage with that knee. So don't believe that if you read it, okay? All right. Now, listen, let me talk about the kneeling part. When you kneel, and I know if I were to ask some of you to kneel right now, you'd go, yeah, Brother Mike, you know my back, you know my knees, I can't do that. And God understands that. But there's more to it than the physical posture of kneeling. When you kneel, you're showing adoration. I don't want to embarrass my son and my daughter-in-law, but before they were married, let me tell you how he proposed to her. She's a runner, half marathons, and she would run out toward Pike Road down those long roads. And he knew her route that she'd be taking, and so on the day that he was going to propose to her, he had put some signs with some words to songs that they knew about every 100 yards. And so she rounds the curve. She sees this sign that's got a phrase from a song. And then a few hundred yards later, there's another one, and there's rose petals on the ground beside it. And so she knows something up. And by the way, my daughter was there taking pictures of this through a big lens. And so you can see her face, kind of tears in her eyes already. And then as she looks down this long road, there's my son with a suit on and a dozen red roses. And as she draws closer, you can see her eyes watering up a little bit in the pictures. And then when she comes up to him, she stands there. And what does he do? He kneels down, hands her the roses, opens the ring case, and proposes. Now, why does he kneel? To show adoration. Our kneeling before the Lord's not required, but it's a great statement of your love for God. Kneeling also shows submission. You've seen in movies when people are conquered, they have them kneel before the king. I show my submission, and I prove that I'm the king of my house. Just this past week, my wife was on her knees in front of me saying, "Come out from under that bed and fight like a man." That's what she was saying. I didn't mean to play. I didn't plan to say that. It just popped in my... Anyway. But pray. Pray and talk with your family. Don't leave your faith here at church. Talk about the good things that God did today. Talk about the song the praise team led or the handbells played. Talk about the word that was read. I know there are 1,000 things you can go home and gripe about. The parking lot was busy. Did you see what so-and-so had on? No. And you go down that path, you're going to instill in your family a negative view of God's church. I'm not saying we're perfect and flawless. We're not. But brag on the good things and what God is doing. Pray with them. Talk with them about what God's... The summers when I grew up, my sister and I would go to live with an aunt here, another aunt there, because my mom was working, never knew my dad. So we would spend some time with them. And then we'd go to church with those people. And it was usually country churches. And every Sunday morning after church, my aunt would serve a Sunday dinner. And she served the same meal every Sunday. You know what they served? Roast preacher. Every Sunday you would come and sit down and they would just lambaste what went on at church and the bad things about it. And I wondered, why did you even go there if it's so bad? Understand, if we're going to lead our families to be healthy church members, I'm not saying ignore the flaws, and we have a bunch of them, but praise the good things of God, that people get saved, that lives are being changed, that God's using. I am sold and committed to the local church, giving my life to this. And I've had other directions my life could have gone, but I've chosen that's not where I want to go. God's called me because I believe the local church is the answer to our world's dilemmas. That when Christ empowers his people who gather and build each other up, that God takes the church and revolutionizes people's lives. Let me give you another, real quickly. Serve with your family in the world. I've talked about be with them at church, pray with them at home, serve in the world. There is something that happens when you and your family do ministry together. We talk about mission trips to Guatemala and Haiti and Ukraine. I want us to develop a mission trip where parents and all age children can accompany them. Now, we can do that locally. You may not be able to go to Haiti with all of your family financially or just logistically, but you can walk around the street and take a bowl of soup to that neighbor who's been sick. And you can do it together. And I promise you, it will leave an impression on you like you've never seen before. Because when you serve together, there is a bond that's created like never before. And parents, I encourage you to don't just do ministry on your own and think about it, but call up your children or your friends and say, would you go with me as we go visit so-and-so in the hospital? There is a bond and a unity that takes place. When I was in junior high school, we had a guy named Ricky. He was big. He was our whole right side of the line. That's how big he was. But he was big and strong, and he was slow. And somehow he intercepted a pass. A deflection kind of fell in his lap. And then he took off and, believe it or not, scored a touchdown by intercepting a pass. Big old slow guy. But to hear Ricky tell it, Ricky says, when I caught that ball, first I had to zig, and then I had to zag, and I leaped over this guy, and I stiff-armed that guy, and I ran across field, and I cut this way, and finally I dove over the finish line. What Ricky didn't remember was that we had to block everybody on the other team 4 times before he could get across the goal line. That's how slow he was. You see, friend, ministry is not done by yourself. Never is. It's always a team effort. And when you do that together, as a family, as a church, there is a unity that's built. Now, I got to move quick. So the last couple things let's just bring up. God steers a moving car a lot better than a parked one. God leads you to do ministry and be what you're supposed to be doing when you're already doing things. Let me go. Acts 13. Barnabas and them are about to be sent out for a mission trip. Among the prophets and teachers in the church at Antioch were, and it lists their names, 5 of them. There was Barnabas, Simeon, Lucius, Manaen, and Paul. And look what they were doing before they go on mission trip. One day as these men were worshiping and fasting, the Holy Spirit said to them, they were already serving the Lord. God takes you when you're already serving and leads you to greater service. When you are faithful in the little things. Dedicate Barnabas and Paul for a special job I have for them. And then it says this, so after more fasting and prayer, the men laid their hands on them and sent them on their way. Now here's the principle I want you to learn. When you are faithful in the little things, God blesses you with the greater things. Remember David fighting Goliath? Little old bitty David, just a teenage boy. The Goliath giant laughed at him. What are you doing here? You're ruddy complexion. That meant all he had was peach fuzz on his hat, on his face. He didn't even shave yet. And he said, what are you doing here? And David, remember what David said? David said, when I was guarding the sheep and a lion came, I slew him. When a bear came, I killed him. I'm here today to do the same to you. In other words, I've been faithful in little battles. Now God's put me in a great battle. And that's how God operates. When you are involved in Bible study and when you are serving in a ministry and when you are praying, God equips you to the next level of ministry. Oh, friend, understand how crucial that is. And if you want to involve family and friends to be a part of a healthy church, you become like Christ and you pray and you serve and your life emits a radiance and an example for them to follow. Let me close out with this one. When others mess up, don't you give up. That first mission trip that we just read about, how Barnabas and Paul, they took a third person, a guy named John Mark. It was Barnabas' nephew, a family member. They took him with them. Within a few months into the mission trip, John Mark, their nephew, quit. That's a three-man team, and one of them quit. They were almost crippled. Fast forward a year ahead. They're going on another mission trip. And Barnabas says, hey, let's go get John Mark again and go. Apostle Paul says, not on your life. We're not taking that quitter. He messed up, and we're not going to take a chance on him again. In fact, it was such a division that Barnabas and Paul, best friends, parted ways. But you know what Barnabas did? Just because John Mark messed up, Barnabas didn't give up. He gave Mark that second chance. And as a result, we got a book in the Bible called Mark. Later on, when Paul's in prison, he says, everybody's left me. Would you send John Mark to come help me? When other people mess up, and they will, don't you give up. Maybe you're one that's ready to give up today. Maybe there's somebody here for whom this word is meant just for you. You're ready to give up on your marriage, ready to give up on life, you're ready to give up on your future or give up on your kids. People and things are going to mess up, but don't you give up. And why? Because God never gives up on you. It is never, ever too late to be what God intends you to be. Never. Maybe there's somebody here today that needs to hear this. Your life may seem like it's at a dead end, but you just don't see the passageway that God's built in there. Continue to be faithful to Him. Do those little things, and God will open the blessings for greater things. I had three close friends in college, all three in ministry, great guys. We were as different as night can be. My roommate, Brad, another guy named Carrie, and Carrie was a member of our church for a number of years. Another guy named Charlie, and different. But we would do revivals and retreats. This particular weekend, we had all four of us were doing a retreat together for a couple of three churches. And one would do music, another would do testimonies, and Brad and I would do preaching, teaching. And so when it was over, we were to go back to the other churches on Sunday morning and preach. Well, I knew where I'm supposed to go, but you got to know Carrie and Brad, they weren't the most organized people in the world. But they were the team to go to this church. And so it's Sunday morning. The service starts at 11. It's 10:30. They're on the highway looking for this church, and they don't have a map. There's not even cell phones then, much less GPS. But Brad says, I think it's down this road. No, they're riding. It's 10:45. It's 10 to 11. It's 5 to 11. They still no church in sight. Finally, it's after 11. It's 11:10, and they're getting panicky because the church service has already started, and Brad is supposed to preach. And it's 11:15. It's 11:20, and finally Brad goes, there it is. And so Carrie's the wheelman. He's driving, and Carrie goes, okay, I got a plan. I'll pull in here, drop you off. I'll go park the car. You sneak in the side door, and you let the preacher know you're there. Meanwhile, the church, they're going through their old program, and the pastor's up there going, I wonder where Brad is. I wonder where Brad is. And so it's now they're passing the offering plate. Brad still hadn't showed up. And so the preacher's thinking, I got to preach a sermon now that I didn't plan to preach. And then all of a sudden, through the side door, the door opens up, and in comes Brad. Flustered look, rushing in. He looked like Donny Osmond, and he walks in, and he walks up there on the pulpit. Where's that chair? He walks up there on the pulpit, and he sits down by the preacher. The preacher's sitting there about to preach, and he goes, hi, I'm Brad. I'm Brad McLean. And the preacher gives them this look. You ever seen the movie Matrix? Where everything's in slow motion. Brad said it seems like it was that. We just stared at each other. It was only like for 10 seconds, but it seemed like it was a day-long stare. And so the preacher finally said, my name is so-and-so. What church are you looking for? And the audience was just like that. Who's that guy walking up there with the preacher? We've never seen him before. He looks like Donny Osmond. What is he doing here, And Brad says, I'm looking for Central Baptist Church. He says, son, this is Central Methodist Church. Oh, where's Central Baptist? Oh, about a half a mile down the road. Okay. And so back out the door. Meanwhile, the congregation doesn't know any of this is going on. They're going, what is this? And so Donny Osmond back outside the door, gone. And he goes out in the parking lot. Now, get this, not over. Brad goes out in the parking lot. Meanwhile, Carrie, the wheel guy, has parked the car and come in the back door and sat down while Brad goes out the side door. And Carrie doesn't see it. And Carrie's sitting there going, I wonder where Brad is, He's supposed to be preaching today. I don't see him up there. And the preacher starts a sermon, and a few moments later, Brad comes back in the side door. Carrie, are you here? I need a ride. It was crazy. And they were always just unplanned. But I tell you, the bond we had because we served with each other. Carrie died a couple of years ago. Member of our church. Made a lot of mistakes. Back pain. Got addicted to some prescription drugs. Had a 20-year-old son die suddenly. He wrote me a note. He said, Mike, thanks for never giving up on me. Folks, people are going to mess up, but don't you give up. The very person you go that extra mile with may be the one who writes the Gospel of Mark because you gave them the second chance. Let's pray together. Lord, thank you for being our Lord and Savior, but also our friend in the faith, who stands by us, who stands with us, who forgives us, and never gives up on us. God, I believe there's somebody here today who need to hear this word. Somebody who feels like their life has been wasted and ruined, and there's no future. Lord, you remind them that you're not just the God of the second chance, you're the God of the third, fourth, multiple chances. May your grace today, that amazing grace that we sang about earlier, may your grace be received in that heart today. I ask these things in the name of Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.